Diogenes proved it 2,400 years ago when he masturbated in the marketplace and said, "If only hunger could be satisfied so easily." And using his brutal insights, I can prove it to you within the next 17 minutes of this video why every man who has ever loved a woman has been deceived by the greatest lie ever sold. By the end of this, you will either walk away broken or unshackled. Imagine a man so free, so untamed, that he lived in a barrel, masturbated in public, and told Alexander the Great to step out of his sunlight. Diogenes of Sinope was not just a philosopher, he was a predator of delusions, a man who wielded truth like a knife and carved through the lies of civilization. And his greatest target? The illusion of love. Most men never recover from their first heartbreak. They spend years, decades, chasing the ghost of a feeling that was never real to begin with. But Diogenes, he never chased. He never begged. He never knelt before the altar of a woman's affection. And because of that, he was the freest man who ever lived. Let me tell you a story you've never heard. In ancient Athens, a beautiful courtesan named Lais was the obsession of every wealthy man in the city. Kings, generals, poets, they all threw themselves at her feet, offering fortunes for a single night in her bed. One day, a young philosopher, arrogant and smitten, approached Diogenes and boasted, "Lais looks at me with favor. She smiles when I speak." Diogenes, without looking up from his meal of raw onions, replied, "You poor fool, that smile costs 300 drachmas. The young man stormed off, furious, but a week later, he returned, broken. Lais had drained his coin purse and moved on to a richer man. Diogenes laughed and said, "The only difference between you and a beggar is that the beggar knows he's being robbed." This is the first lesson. Women do not love like men love. Modern men are taught that love is a mutual exchange, that if you give loyalty, you receive loyalty. If you give devotion, you receive devotion. But history screams the opposite. Consider the story of Heinrich von Kleist, the 19th century poet who worshipped a woman named Henriette Vogel. He wrote her letters, dedicated his life to her, and in the end, she was dying of cancer and asked him to kill her. He did. Then he turned the gun on himself. Her last words, "Thank you." No tears, no regret, just gratitude for his service. This is the female psyche in its rawest form, a machine of hypergamy, wired to seek the best possible outcome, even at the cost of a man's life. Diogenes knew this. When asked why he refused to marry, he said, "Marriage is a trap for fools. Why chain yourself to a creature that will always seek a stronger link?" Every man remembers his first betrayal. Maybe it was the girl in high school who kissed you behind the bleachers, then laughed when her friends found out. Maybe it was the fiancé who swore eternity, only to leave the moment a wealthier man appeared. The details don't matter. The wound is the same. Here's the truth no one will tell you. Your pain is not an accident. It is a design. In ancient Sparta, boys were taken from their mothers at age 7 and thrown into the wilderness to survive. The weak died. The strong returned as warriors. Why? Because the Spartans knew suffering is the only teacher that matters. Your heartbreak is not a tragedy. It is your first and only real lesson in female nature. Diogenes put it best. A man who cries over a woman is like a dog howling at the moon. The moon does not hear. The moon does not care. But what if I told you there's a way to turn that pain into power? That the very force which crushed you can be weaponized? This is where the weak turn away and the strong begin. There There is a moment in every man's life when the veil is torn away. It happens suddenly. A single brutal revelation that shatters the illusion he has clung to since childhood. For some, it comes in the cold silence of an empty bed after she leaves. For others, it arrives in the smirk of a woman who knows she holds all the power. But no matter how it happens, the lesson is always the same. Love is not a contract. It is a game. And you have been playing blindfolded. Diogenes understood this better than any philosopher before or since. While Plato scribbled fantasies about ideal forms and Socrates debated morality, Diogenes lived in a barrel, masturbated in the marketplace, and laughed at men who still believed in fairness. He was not cruel. He was not bitter. He was simply awake. And that is what made him dangerous. History remembers the men who transformed agony into strength. Take the Roman general Gaius Marius, who after being betrayed by his own people, exiled and left for dead, clawed his way back to power with nothing but rage as his fuel. Or Nietzsche, who after being rejected by Lou Salome, plunged into solitude and emerged with Thus Spoke Zarathustra, a book that would redefine philosophy. These men did not collapse under the weight of their suffering. They forged it into a weapon. Diogenes' entire life was a testament to this principle. When pirates captured him and sold him into slavery, he did not weep. He did not beg. He looked at his buyer and said, "You need a master. I'll take the job." The man was so stunned by his audacity that he made Diogenes tutor his sons. This is the first law of emotional alchemy. Your pain is currency. Spend it wisely. They drown in self-pity, replaying memories of her touch, her laugh, the way she looked at them before she walked away. They obsess over questions with no answers. Why wasn't I enough? What does he have that I don't? Diogenes would have laughed at them. When a heartbroken young man asked him how to forget a woman, Diogenes handed him a rotten fish and said, "Carry this through the market." Confused, the man obeyed. By the time he returned, the stench was unbearable. "Now throw it away," Diogenes commanded. The man did. "Do you miss it?" Diogenes asked. "Of course not," the man replied. Diogenes smiled. "Then why do you miss her?" Women have known the truth for centuries. They are the original strategists, the architects of emotional warfare. While men were busy building empires, women were mastering the art of influence, not through force, but through illusion. Consider the story of Catherine the Great, who seduced and deposed her own husband to seize the Russian throne. Or Cleopatra, who wrapped Julius Caesar and Mark Antony around her finger, not with beauty alone, but with calculated displays of vulnerability and power. These women were not evil. They were simply playing the game at its highest level. Diogenes saw through the charade. When a famous courtesan bragged that she could make any man fall in love with her, he challenged her. "Then make me." She tried. She flattered him, touched him, whispered promises in his ear. Diogenes yawned. Finally, she stripped naked in front of him. He didn't even look up from his bowl of lentils. "Your body is your weapon," he told her, "but I am not your target." This is the second law. You cannot be manipulated if you refuse to play. Modern men are drowning in manipulation. They are told to open up, to be vulnerable, to share their feelings. And then, when they do, they are punished for it. The woman loses respect. The desire fades. The relationship crumbles. Diogenes would have called this predictable. When a weeping man confessed that his wife no longer desired him after he poured his heart out to her, Diogenes handed him a cup of water and said, "Now spill it." The man did. "Can you put it back?" Diogenes asked. The man shook his head. Then why did you spill it in the first place? The final stage of transformation is not control over women. It is control over yourself. The Stoics called it apatheia, freedom from passion. The Buddhists called it detachment. Diogenes called it living like a dog. No attachments, no expectations, no fear of loss. When Alexander the Great, the most powerful man in the world, stood before Diogenes and asked what he could do for him, Diogenes replied, "Move. You're blocking my sun." That is the essence of the unbreakable mind. Not wealth, not status, not the love of a woman, but the sheer, unshakable certainty that you need nothing. Most men will never reach this state. They will spend their lives chasing validation, begging for scraps of affection, rearranging their entire existence for the fleeting approval of a woman who will discard them the moment a better option appears. But what happens when a man truly awakens? When he decides to rewrite the rules? This is where philosophy becomes power. There comes a moment in a man's life when the world shifts. It is not a slow realization, not some gradual awakening. It is a single violent instant where everything you believed cracks open, and what pours out is not enlightenment, but fire. This is the moment when you understand, with perfect clarity, that every tear you shed, every night you spent aching, every sacrifice you made in the name of love was never about her. It was always about you, your weakness, your hunger, your desperate, clawing need to be chosen. Diogenes knew this truth better than any man who ever lived. He did not beg for love. He did not bargain for affection. He did not bargain for affection. He lived in a barrel, masturbated in public, and died with nothing, and in doing so, became more powerful than kings. The greatest lie ever sold to men is that they need a woman's love to be complete. History is littered with the corpses of men who believe this. Samson, the strongest man who ever lived, brought to his knees for a woman's betrayal. Orpheus, who walked into hell itself to retrieve Eurydice, only to lose her because he could not resist looking back. Even the mighty Hercules, who burned himself alive when his love, Deianira, poisoned him with what she thought was a love potion. These were not love stories. They were warnings. Diogenes spat on such weakness. When a young man came to him, weeping because his beloved had left him for another, Diogenes listened silently. Then, without a word, he picked up a dead rat by the tail and held it up. The man recoiled in disgust. "You shudder at a rotting carcass," Diogenes said, "but you let a woman rot your soul." This is the first law of ruthless self-mastery. Nothing, not love, not sex, not companionship, is worth your dignity. Most men will never learn this. They will spend their lives chasing the high of a woman's approval, like addicts chasing a drug that no longer works. They will lie to themselves, saying this time will be different. She's not like the others. If I just prove myself enough, she'll stay. And every time, they will be wrong. But you have a choice. You can continue to kneel, or you can stand up. There is a story about Diogenes that most philosophers won't tell you. One evening, as he ate his meager supper of lentils, a wealthy politician walked by and sneered, "If you would only learn to flatter the king, you wouldn't have to live on such scraps." Diogenes didn't even look up. "If you would only learn to live on scraps," he replied, "you wouldn't have to flatter the king." This is the essence of the death of neediness. Most men are slaves to desire. They need sex. They need validation. They need to feel wanted. And because of that need, they give women absolute power over them. Right. A woman senses this need like a shark senses blood. It repels her even as she exploits it. Diogenes understood this better than anyone. When the most beautiful courtesan in Corinth offered herself to him for free, he declined. "If you were giving away rotten figs," he said, "would I take them just because they're free?" The courtesan, furious, demanded to know why he would insult her. Diogenes shrugged. "Because I don't need you." That is the second law. The moment you no longer need a woman is the moment she begins to need you. This is not manipulation. This is not game. This is the simple, unshakable truth of power dynamics. A man who is complete in himself is a man who cannot be controlled. So what does it mean to be truly free? It does not mean hating women. It does not mean rejecting love. It means understanding that love is not air. You will not die without it. Diogenes proved this every day of his life. He owned nothing. He answered to no one. He indulged when he wanted, ate when he was hungry, and slept where he pleased. And when Alexander the Great, the most powerful man in the world, stood before him and asked what he desired, Diogenes had only one request: "Stop blocking my sunlight."